Mike, can you lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
4 p.m. on Monday in the closet. And one of our wonderful members will be singing the national anthem.
Marty, lay us up question. Come back and get.
I have Taylor Lefebvre. You should talk to Taylor, last name properly. Taylor Lefebvre from Beer Extraction joining us again.
Awesome!
Hi, I'm Tasha Babbage. I don't know if I count as a guest because I'm Rotary, but
Yeah, you're
And we have Patrick Myers, who's our speaker today. I'll be introducing him later.
All right, fabulous.
Hi, I'm Eve from RCAS High School Center.
All right, welcome.
Back there in the yard.
Amy Scolari, you're still visiting us as a guest? And Tamara James, she owns Arcata Core Pilates right here.
Hi, I'm Liza. I'm from Arcata High School Interact.
So for all who don't know, welcome back, Edward, North Bay and Rochester. So Tomas, our foreign exchange student from France, and we have a lot of newer faces, so I just want to make sure people knew and share his visit.
Last weekend it was Halloween, so sadly I don't have any picture. I totally forgot that, sorry. But it was a lot of fun. I went with some friends to the Canadian Content House. We did trick-or-treating with Nina and the exchange student from Indonesia. It was the first time she did that, so she was very happy. It was really fun to see that. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, but I just forgot to take some pictures. Tonight I have a jazz concert at the Arcata High Auditorium. So it's from 6:30 to 8:30, and there is the first part, just like a swing dancing lesson. And then there is a live, the big band, so we are going to play the whole time. It's only $15 for the tickets, and it helps like the program in the high school, the AA program, so it's very important for them. And there will be food and me playing the bass. I also wanted to talk about the different trips from the Rotary. These are like optional trips, but I'm going to both of them. And I would need a ride to the Bay Area because if I have to buy another ticket from Arcata to San Francisco, it's like very expensive. So if someone could drive us, we are 3 from Humboldt. If you could drive us at the airports, maybe in San Francisco or Oakland, not sure yet. So the dates are on March 21st and 28th, and April 4th and 8th. So if you can drive us, it would be really great. And yeah. I also just wanted to talk about the dinner we are going to organize with the exchange students. So if you still have some places where we could do that, I would love to talk to you. And yeah, thank you.
When is that?
I think we will do that during January or February. We don't have the date yet. We need to find a place. And the idea is just we are going, like the exchange students from Humboldt are going to cook some dishes from the country, sort of like a big buffet. And so we can gather the different Rotary club from Humboldt. Yeah.
That is squeezing a Halloween picture.
Yeah.
mention, it's Susan is celebrating her birthday today.
Yes, you what do you want to do on your birthday? Come back to Rotary. So, it's great to be back. I've missed all of you. I'm half-time in Portland now and half-time here, and getting pretty familiar with that flight, although it's a good thing I came in a different day than today. But we just had the chamber mixer at Hellsport last night, and a lot of you were there. Thank you for coming. We took down the big racquetball wall, and it's amazing to see. It's like it's double the space. I couldn't believe it. So come in and check it out. It's more walls coming down, and it's going to be a really big weight room. So good to be back.
Welcome back. We met a couple weeks ago. You won an award.
Yeah, Father of the Year, Tasha, and this was an Ingemar thing, and all I wanted to say on it is we were there to celebrate my staff and employees and people that hitched their horse to my wagon in the last 30 years, and that's all I want to talk about. And Tasha did a great job introducing me.
Revisit from last week, but this week Ray was able to bring a banner.
I've been told I have to display them properly though.
So here.
Wait, I gotta get the Paul Harris pose right here. Okay, it's gonna take a small change. There we go. This one, everybody should be proud of this. This is amazing. The person that you get to thank for this is sitting at the end of the table. Maybe? No. I tried. Well, you know what?
So November is Rotary Foundation Month. So at the beginning of the year, I did go over what the foundation raises funds for. And so one thing I wanted to speak to is that it's from Charity Navigator, it's a 4-star organization where 92% of the funds are spent on program awards and given back to projects that happen all across the world and projects that happen within the community. And so I want to remind folks to look to the Rotary Foundation for your donations. There's a lot of fundraising that happens within our club. The final Fridays are dedicated to the foundation. We have this huge fundraiser coming up in a couple weeks, and that is to support our own projects that happen here locally that come into our own community foundation fund. And so I wanted to make that distinction because while we are part of this greater international organization, and we have these wonderful projects that happen around the world, there are a lot of projects that happen here locally, and a lot of the major fundraising that happens within our club is to support these local projects. I just wanted to offer examples of some of the projects that have happened, like in Colorado, solar lights. I'm a fan of environmental science, so I found this from the foundation website. MyRotary.org has got so much information about how you can contribute, how you can engage with the club, how you can engage with the members. So wanted to divert people to that resource because it's so much helpful information. And then so far this year, we're at 17,550 out of 25,000 goals, so we're way more than halfway. So we're doing an amazing job so far, and we haven't even hit our halfway point. So the final Fridays have been successful, and the contributions from our club members who are our ongoing club contributors are definitely helping us reach our goals. So a huge thank you. And so far, I just wanted to give everybody a round of applause for what we've done so far. Justin, do you want to speak to the district fire relief fund?
Yeah, so again, on our district website, we have a donate button where you can contribute to the victims so far of the Kincaid fires. Essentially, everyone's going back to their homes right now. And from what we heard, there's a lot of smoke damage and whatnot. I think we've heard over 100 homes were destroyed, which is a lot, but it's not a lot compared to the fire 2 years ago, but it's still incredible, and it's really sad for all the folks that live there. So what we're doing right now is we're collecting money in the disaster relief fund for the district, and then once everyone gets back and kind of established, the needs of the area will be more known, and then the money will start to be used like that. What the district does is they'll hand out an assessment sheet, and the presidents of Windsor and the other club down there that's been affected by it, they'll reach out to the people in the community, both businesses and personal, and then they'll hand those out and they'll get the money distributed. So it's kind of a hurry up and wait situation right now, but it is really, really easy to donate and share with people if you want to go ahead and do that. So anyway, thanks, AJ.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question? I couldn't get that donation button to work on mine, so I don't know if anyone else had that problem.
I don't know. I'll bring it up to Tom.
I pushed the button and a little whirly thing
And
keeps
just
going
wouldn't stop
around.
doing that.
It was still swirling this morning. I was trying to do it last night.
Maybe so many people are donating, it's crashing.
You can also mail a check to Ashley Deal.
Yeah, I'll check with Ashley, she's out of town, and I'll give her a call, and I'll call Tom this
Just
morning.
take that checks directly and mail to her.
That's exactly it. Yeah, you can take checks directly to Ashley, so that's another way to do it. It's
You also click through on our Facebook page and our website.
And Sunrise Spirit.
And Sunrise Spirit.
There it is. Yeah. So, and thanks for bringing that up. I'll working on that this morning. So.
And we'll give Karen an opportunity to give us an update on what is happening out here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again for having me out once a month just to give you a quick city update. Just 3 things I wanted to touch on. The first was the city council is actually going to be holding a special meeting next Wednesday night just to talk about emergency preparedness, sort of where the city is at. We have been undergoing sort of a revitalization of our plans over the last year, so we'll be updating and sharing those. And then also really to debrief on the power shutdowns that happened in October. And we'd really love to have input from businesses that were affected by the preterm power shutdowns with PG&E and start to get a sense of how that really affected locally our Arcata businesses. As a whole, it was fortunate for the city. Really, we were fortunate on the North Coast compared to most of our, as we talk about the disaster relief for the fires, but a lot of our neighbors to the south of us were out of power for 3, 4, up to 5 days. So we had a period, of about 30 hours and another period of about 30 hours. From a city operational standpoint, knock on wood, but it's fairly easy as long as we have fuel to keep fully operational for that period of time. But we do recognize that that was not the case for many of our businesses, and that there really were income losses to the community, and we'd love to start to capture those as well. So if you're interested in that, it'll be next Wednesday night, 6 o'clock at City Hall. I wanted to touch on sort of our new largest development that will be coming before their final meeting before the Planning Commission here in December, and then ultimately before the council within the next couple of months. And it's the Creekside, so it's we refer to it, it used to be sort of the Foster Avenue expansion program, so the new Foster Avenue that was built, if you continue to run that street out to the west, there's a big old open field just on the edge of town. It would be annexed into the city. It's owned by Danco. This has come before the council a few times in the past with development plans. The current plan, as it sits right now before the Planning Commission, is 32 single-family residential homes, 25 smaller cottages, and then a 100-bed assisted living facility. So it'll be split between standard assisted living and memory care on that site. So that is their final meeting before the Planning Commission, actually this month in November. We anticipate, and then heading to the council either in December or January as they get stuff together. And then lastly, if you missed the city's surplus auction, today and today only is the free day. So many of you, if any of you have been into City Hall, you know we've been under a pretty significant restructuring and reorganization. A lot of that having to do with our heating and ventilation system, but also sort of co-locating all of our development services teams back up into City Hall. As a part of that, we did have a lot of surplus old desks. We found a lot of stuff in other city facilities that have just been accumulating over the years. We really do our best to try to recycle it, not throw it away. So we go through all of the standard, how the city can dispose of stuff and auction it off and try to get it to different auction houses. And then at the end, we still have a container of stuff. So if anybody is interested in office supplies from 9 to 3 at City Hall, we'll have that container open. Please come prepped with the truck and ready to move. We are just free day, trying to get rid of it because we really don't want it to end in the landfill. So does anybody have questions about things in the city?
The cottages that are being built, are those going to be sold also, or are they going to be rentals? I mean,
that is a good question. My understanding is that they were going to be sold. Yeah. There was talk initially about, senior only, non-senior. At this point, what I'm seeing in the proposal is that it would not be age restricted, but they would be definitely a smaller footprint. And they are in the design itself, and you can always, if you go to cityofarcata.org, there's a button on the left-hand side that talks about major developments and projects, and if you click on there, you can just see the basic schematic. They are kind of clustered together in sort of a development piece in and of itself on that property.
and the size of those is, what the cottage size?
I think they're about 1,000 square feet.
And is that a timber ridge facility?
That has not been specified yet. Yeah. So I don't know if they've found. Have you heard from them?
What do you know?
I currently do not live in a world where Danco builds an assisted living that is not a timber ridge facility. So I'm just living in that world right now. But if it's different, it's different.
Yeah.
I have not heard anything.
Yeah. And they haven't specified in their plans with you, but your guess is probably better than mine. All right. Any other questions on city stuff? We do also still have a fire sale, if you haven't seen, at Solutions and at Eco Groovy over here. I think all of you know that we had, a pretty near catastrophic fire on the plaza as a result of the power shutdowns. We did have a generator that was just left to, keep things cooled at the cafe, Big Blue Cafe. It unfortunately sort of edged its way over to, it was sitting behind all of this side of the plaza. There's a little bit of an elevation gap, so at the back side of all of those buildings, there's typically stairs, interior, exterior. The ones in Big Blue are an interior set of steps down to a little concrete landing. And the concept of thinking that it was sort of an out exterior space, even though it was inside the building. Never leave a generator inside the building, certainly. I think that's one of the rules. You could also go to cityofarcata.org for generator tips right now. But that particular generator, just kind of edged its way over, and there was a piece of, a wood slat that was probably about this height that opened up to get into the crawl space underneath the building. And that's actually what started to heat up once that generator touched against that, just, kind of flimsy piece of wood that was just that little doorway. That got on fire, and then it just spread instantly under the floor. So when you walk in upstairs of the buildings, you don't see a lot of damage, but the underneath structural supports of the building is really what got damaged. And, fortunately, they are left standing. Just other than a lot of inventory that has been lost for all of those businesses, we didn't have any injuries. So nice to have a downtown fire department still. That's really what saved that. Having that staff is the only reason we had that. Any other questions about the city? Okay, I will be here.
Tonight, if you can't make it to Tomas' performance at Arcata High at Uncle Bank, it's Arts Arcata. We have a showing called Humble Harvest. Paul Ricard does some great work, and stop by. There'll be some music and some food. And then Carol.
Woohoo! Tomorrow's big day. Woohoo! Down the highway. And remember, we're going to try to bust this out in an hour, but we need you to help us do that. So meet at 10 a.m. at the
Nature Center. We did send out a sign-up genius. We've got several, some teams are filled, some aren't. I'm going to circulate this around. And afterwards, we have lunch. Scott over at Rita's, okay, for volunteers, all right? You can't just come in, you gotta come and do your hour to work, okay? So anyway, I hope to see you guys out there. It might be foggy, but it's not gonna be raining, so that's good. All right.
Thanks, Jerome. And Mike?
4 o'clock on Monday, we have one of our members who's going to be singing the national anthem. Local honor guard will be in dress uniform helping us. And it should be short and sweet, about a half hour. Love to have all of you there. Especially talk to vets, invite them to come. I've been talking it up to people I meet in Costco and everywhere else, so, you know. And hopefully we can do this as a yearly thing, you know, every year from now on. Thank you.
Thank you. No, right on the plaza.
Right here in the plaza.
And Marty, same day?
Yeah, I'll follow up with that too. From Arcata Sunrise to Southwest Eureka, we put on every year our Veterans Day program at the Authority Center. And that starts at 11. It goes to noon. And we have all Branchville service and the Merchant Marine involved in this program. So if you're out and about, it's a really good program, and you run into probably a lot of people you know there. So 11 o'clock at Dorney Center on the 11th. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, Feast of the Holidays, how are we doing?
First of all, I'd like everyone that's on my committee to stand so you can be recognized. Come on, Rachel. So just to kind of go around so everybody knows what everyone is doing. So Howard, as you know, is sending out the sign-up genius. Romy is taking care of, she's got the basketball team in doing cleanup, and we've also got a special, a surprise entertainment coming up, which is going to be pretty awesome. Karen and Susan McCarthy, they are doing the decorations. Rachel's doing ticket sales. Brandon is my co-chair, and because he does Taste of Spring. Dustin and AJ are doing the raffle, and Melinda's doing publicity along with Patty, and I don't see Patty here. But everyone is just doing an amazing job. We've only got less than 2 weeks till this event. We're dark the day after, so everybody knows. So you don't go to Taste the Holidays and then come into Rotary the next morning at 7, which is nice. So as far as ticket sales, where are we in ticket sales?
We've sold a lot as far as members buying them, so get out in the streets and start selling to friends and family. Start popping those tickets.
Our goal is 19.5, and as of Tuesday night, we were at almost 5,000.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of money that's out there. I collected some this morning. Nick still has his square, so if anybody wants to purchase their tickets today, but we need to really get those funds in. And I'd like to get them in before the event, not the last minute. So that would be just really awesome. And 19.5, actually, some people have asked for more, so it'll be more than that. And we actually just had 50 tickets just made up today. So if anybody needs any extra tickets, just let Rachel know and she'll get them for you. We've got some new, you can sit down. We've got some new participants this year. We've got the boardroom, we've got the pub, we've got Local Fish Company, and then for, we also have Cavaletto, and Alchemy is going to, so some of the same ones that we had at Taste of Spring are going to be coming. We initiated having distilleries come at Taste of Spring, so now they're going to come for Taste of the Holidays and sort of make it an annual event, which is great. How many people have brought their raffle gifts in? How many groups, teams? So we have a ways to go. So if you can get your raffle prizes in, and also AJ was going to say that.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your ideas because we have to create these descriptions sooner than later, and we don't want to do it all towards the end, because that's definitely a lot of work on us. But please bring your prizes here, drop them off at HealthSport, or take them up to Umpqua Bank and I'll take them to HealthSport for you. But I'd love to at least get your an email of what you guys have put together so we can compile the descriptions and start getting that put together so we can have it ready. Yeah. And then it's also part of our marketing. So as we approach the event, we'd love to use these prizes, raffle prizes, to entice people to come check us out and
Right.
enjoy
And
the
then, even though we put out the list of themed, it doesn't have to be themed. That was just suggestion in case you can't figure out what to do. You know, it just kind of helps a lot.
Go Road.
And then Sign Up Genius, Howard's been monitoring that, and there's some empty spots towards the end of the evening that he was going to talk about.
Yeah, we've particularly arranged all the positions so that they're at most half of the evening. So you'll be able to party it up and have a good time for at least half of the meeting if you sign up for position here. Most of them are filled early in the sheet, but in the last few pages, we still have a lot of openings. Some of them are pretty appealing, like we need somebody for the chocolate table. We need someone for the shuttle service, for raffle money runners, drink ticket sales. So please, would you all, we want full participation here to have all of you being part of this. Please do volunteer and fill in these remaining positions. So we'll have good support for the evening event. I'll pass this sign-up sheet around again.
And lastly, I went to storage on Saturday with Karen and Chris, and we went through and cleaned things out. And we're looking for our Christmas string lights. And I know AJ sent out an email on Tuesday. I went back yesterday. I was thinking maybe I didn't see the box, but apparently they're not there. So if anybody knows that somebody borrowed them out of storage, if we could get them back before the taste, that would be great. Otherwise, I'm going to probably be purchasing some.
Are the tubs missing too? Are you missing the whole tub?
So I lent it to someone and they returned it, and they even sent me a picture of it. But, and there was some votives in there and some other things, but the tub isn't there. So I don't know what happened. So, and it was all of the string lights. Because you know, we have that one bin that has all the string lights and the other lights in there, and it's not there. So anyway, if anybody knows of someone that maybe borrowed it, I keep on thinking, did somebody ask me? And I said, sure, and I can't remember who they are, but I didn't find it there. So. All right?
Tell us about the zero waste idea. And how that's
Oh, okay, zero waste. I'm really excited about that.
This is new. This is big.
So as you know, we've always done paper plates, plastic forks. You know, we've been doing taster classes for a while, and we've got our new taster classes for this year. But I decided that I wanted to do zero waste this year, and I should have brought the samples, but I ordered 500 little appetizer porcelain plates, and I've got 500 little appetizer forks. So we don't have to get the plastic forks, we don't have to get the paper plates anymore. We have our taster glasses. The only thing that will be paper, but it'll be compostable, it will be the brown napkins that we're going to do, because we're doing appetizers. It just makes it nicer to be able to, you know, dispose those away since you're doing appetizers. You're not doing a sit-down dinner where you use a cloth napkin. Also, I'm going to do our trash bins. We're going to be using compostable trash, garbage bags, not the big heavy plastic ones. So we're just trying to move that way, and maybe we'll be the first. Rotary Club to do this, and we can just kind of pass it on to everyone else.
So probably the last meeting, you're going to have to kind of maybe do a group training on, you know, how it's going to happen. What happens with the plates? What happens with the forks?
Right.
How do we make sure people get not the plates and the forks and the trash and the paper stuff where it needs to go? I mean, everybody's going to have to be part of the
We will have a
committee
bin.
there.
We'll have that all taken care of. So we will get that covered. I mean, we have to go through this and see. You know, you learn by any mistakes that happen, and so we're just going to figure it out. But I want to continue to do this, and this will be perfect because we can recycle these same dishes and forks and everything for Taste of Spring and or for other events that we do. So let's be the start and make this a big success. All right.
So just a reminder to share on social media as we approach the event. We want to bring this up to the top of people's feeds, so let people know. Remind them that you can sell them tickets, and let's get all those tickets sold and have a successful event. Carol, would you like to introduce our speaker?
Yes. Right, well, I'm so pleased to have Patrick Myers with us, sharing an update about the Condor Project. Patrick joined the Yurok tribe in 2019 to serve as the lead biologist and field crew lead for the Yurok Condor Recovery Program. Patrick has worked for federal and state agencies and non-governmental organizations throughout the country to research, conserve, and restore a variety of threatened and endangered species. He has also contributed to the research and management of large animals such as black bear and mule deer. Patrick earned his MS degree in wildlife biology from Utah State University, where he investigated black bear spatial ecology and behavior. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick.
Thank you all for inviting me to be here today. It's a pleasure to be invited. I thought I was coming here with the idea of conveying some knowledge to you guys, but I actually have learned a lot about what a Rotary Club is. Albeit not much, but up from 0%, that's pretty good. I also learned that in 15 minutes it's really tough to talk about everything that I want to talk about today. So, I'm going to gloss over a few things, but hold on to those burning questions, and I'm happy to stay afterwards for as long as you might want me to. So the creature in question today is the California condor. It has a 10-foot wingspan. It weighs 20 to 25 pounds, and this is North America's largest land bird. They soar at altitudes up to 15,000 feet, and they can cruise at 200 miles a day in search of food or roost sites. What you see here is the juvenile condor, just a couple years old. And that's evidenced by the black feathers on its head. The adult condor, the one we're probably used to seeing, is actually the source of the genus there, Gymnogyps. So what Gymnogyps means is naked head. So condors will start to look like this at about 5 to 6 years of age when they reach sexual maturity.
Bad timing,
It doesn't translate, I understand. So the purpose of this naked head evolutionarily is to prevent fouling of the head feathers. And these are for heads that are obviously in the insides of dead animals. So as you can imagine, they wouldn't want that fouling. Condors are, after all, carrion feeders. They're exclusive, obligate scavengers. So they won't eat any live prey. They only feed on carrion. And this is, of course, contrary to some of the myths over the centuries about them attacking children or livestock. That's just not true. But the fact is that condors are really important to a functioning ecosystem, particularly here in California and other places where we've killed off some of our large apex scavengers like grizzly bears and wolves. This is an apex scavenger. It'll remove those large carcasses from the landscape, and it has a really specialized digestive tract and gut microbiome that is able to also remove some of the bacteria and toxins from the landscape, things like anthrax, botulism, cholera. They are cavity nesters, so they'll utilize ledges or rock outcroppings for their nests. This one is in Zion National Park. They won't bring any sticks or other materials in, like traditionally what we think of birds doing. Here's another example of a cavity nest. This is in Ventura County, partially up a sequoia. So condors are a Pleistocene era bird. The Pleistocene is the geologic epoch between several million years ago until about 11,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age. Now at that time, condor distribution was continent-wide, coast to coast. There's fossil remains in Florida, in New York State of condors. However, because of that ice age, because of the vegetation changes, the climatic changes that occurred during that time, and also the loss of some of our big terrestrial megafauna. So North America was host to several large bear species, mastodon, giant ground sloths, even camels. And when those all died off, accompanying with the vegetative and climatic changes, the condor range shrunk. So about the time when the first Euro-American settlers arrived, this was the condor range. Mainly the western US, Rocky Mountain states, up into Canada, down into Mexico. With those Euro-American explorers and settlers, a host of environmental threats were introduced. And those threats produced a rapid decline in the condor population. We're going to very, very quickly breeze through some of those threats. Deforestation and habitat loss was one of the most obvious ones. It was widespread then, and it continues today. Collection of birds and eggs, either as specimens, pets, or sideshow exhibitions. Direct killing of birds because of some of the myths that I talked about. Condors are also susceptible to secondary poisoning. So, like I mentioned, all the grizzly bears, the wolves that were poisoned to remove them from the landscape, condors would naturally go in and feed on those things, and they would get poisoned in turn. Other contemporary threats include microtrash. So these are small bits of plastic or metal that the condors will find on the landscape left by people. They'll bring them back to the nest and feed it to the chicks, which will in turn die. DDT was widely used throughout the country for many decades, and it leads to eggshell thinning, not just in condors, but bald eagles and other birds. So here's an example of eggshell thinning as produced by DDT. On the left, a condor egg that had not been, from a condor that had not been feeding on marine mammals with DDE, the metabolite of DDE in their system, and one on the right that was, and as you can see it's about a 40% difference. And then there's the biggest threat which continues to face condors, and that's lead poisoning. So this is poisoning from the ingestion of lead ammunition. This is a radiograph of a ballistics gel showing how soft metals, of which lead is one, how they fragment when they go through a body, and in the bottom one showing a non-lead bullet. This is a radiograph of the neck of a deer that was shot with a lead bullet. You can see all those small bullet fragments. So as condors and other raptors will go in and feed on these things, they'll pick up these bullet fragments, and even the smallest one can lead to lead toxicosis. This is a radiograph of a condor itself. And you can see, interestingly, there's the wing radio tag that showed up in the radiograph. But, you know, when condors arrive at a carcass, and not just condors, all other birds too, scavenging birds, when they arrive, they could indiscriminately, you know, pick at the hide of the animal. But what they're looking for is the easiest way in. So that bullet channel provides that. And when they go to that bullet channel, they often find the bullet. And you can see this one ingested it whole. So all those threats and others that I haven't even mentioned, like electrocution from power lines, caused the most recent condor decline. And it was a decline so dramatic and so rapid that the range shrunk from this area that I talked about earlier to just 27 birds in the mountains east of Ventura and Santa Barbara, down in Southern California. Now, eventually, condors were listed under the Endangered Species Act. They were federally endangered, and the California Condor Recovery Plan was initiated to help bring them back. But there was a lot that went into that recovery. I won't describe everything today, but in short, very shortly, all those birds, all 27 birds, were brought into captivity to initiate a captive breeding program. Now, at the time, they're a little more endearing to this nature. Now, at the time, nobody knew if this would work, but biologists knew that this was a last-ditch effort. Without this intervention, the species would have gone extinct. So you could leave them on the landscape to die out, or you could try something bold. And they did that, and little by little, condors reproduced. They bred in captivity, and they produced these chicks. And eventually, all those chicks turned into juveniles and adults, and those birds were released on the landscape. And the places they were released, these are the 5 current reintroduction sites. There's one down in Baja, Mexico, one at the Grand Canyon, and 3 down in Southern and Central California. They're operated by a variety of agencies and entities, Park Service, Fish and Wildlife, Ventana down in Big Sur is a nonprofit. every recovery site has a flight pen. This is one at Pinnacles National Park. I used to work at this site. And these flight pens are used to hold young birds prior to release to let them acclimate to the area. And they're also used for trapping of wild, free-flying condors. So trapping is an important management tool that allows for birds to come in and we can give them health checks. We can test for blood lead levels to see if they've been ingesting anything with lead bullets. And we can change out wing tags if the wing tag stops functioning. So it's a really important management tool. And on the right-hand side, you can see the trap that leads from the exterior of the flight pen, allows the birds to go inside, and that's the way they're trapped. And as the recovery program continued, you can see a measure of their success here. So little by little, the population increased, and this is a good visualization of the change in population from 1990 to 2012. 1990 when the first birds were re-released to the wild. And here at the top, you can see the light blue, which is the contributions from wild-born chicks, which was the incredible milestone, which began about a decade after those first birds were released. Here's a more recent update. You can see about 500 birds, 500 condors exist. 300 or so in the wild, 200 or so in captivity in the captive breeding programs. So that's a very quick, breezy overview of the biology of the bird and the recovery effort. But there's another side of the story, and that's the importance of condors in Native American societies. So to the Yurok and many other First Nations of the Western United States, the condor is a sacred animal, and they figure prominently in the creation stories of many of these tribes. For instance, even though no one in the Pacific Northwest that is alive today has ever seen a condor free-flying over their homeland, they still feature prominently in many Native American ceremonies and creation stories, dances and regalia. The Yurok World Renewal Ceremony features the condor as a prominent figure. Condor feathers are still used in the dances and regalia, and condor songs are still sung, even though no one alive has ever seen one. And it's because of this cultural importance and the void that has been left from the condor's absence that led the Yurok tribe to initiate the condor reintroduction program, which exists today, and it's been going on for the better part of a decade. And the goal of that program is to reintroduce condors to Yurok ancestral territory. And here's a quick visualization of Yurok ancestral territory. In the red, you can see the Yurok boundary there along the Klamath, and you can see state and national parks there in the green. And it's because of this geographical overlap between the Yurok tribe, ancestral territory, and Redwood National and State Parks that led to a collaborative effort to bring the condor back. But recovery is not so simple, specifically for such a high-profile endangered species like the condor. And there were a lot of steps that needed to go on to make this possible. So the tribe and its partners needed to determine if Yurok ancestral territory and the surrounding Northern California region was suitable for reintroducing condors. And knowing that they once lived here, the obvious answer might be yes, it is suitable. But a lot has happened in the last 100 years, and a lot of studies needed to go on to assure federal agencies that this was a worthwhile project, one with a likelihood of success. So marine contaminants were assessed with particular emphasis on DDT. And the results showed that our area had some of the lowest levels as compared to other condor reintroduction sites. You can see both in California, Oregon, Washington here on the right. The tribe undertook studies to study blood lead levels, and we used other avian scavenging birds, turkey vultures and ravens, as surrogates to test blood lead levels on the landscape. And again, Humboldt Bill on the left-hand side there, our area was one of the lowest out of all those tested. Now, that was turkey vultures, and this is the result for ravens, and you can see Humboldt there on the right. So, promising results so far. Then a biologist out of Portland, Jesse Delia, undertook habitat analyses to look at foraging, nesting, and roosting potential sites all along the western U.S. and found that our area appears to have the greatest abundance of quality habitat for condors anywhere in the West Coast. And that includes places down where condor reintroduction sites are currently operating. So we know the tremendous natural resources in our area, including expansive prairies, oak woodlands, and some big trees, which are obviously important for nests and roost sites. So here's a map produced by Save the Redwoods that shows the greatest quantity of old-growth coastal redwoods in our area. Not surprising. We also have abundant food resources along the coast. Pinnipeds, cetaceans. We've all heard about the 2 whales that have washed up over the last couple weeks. And this is a couple of condors feeding on a whale down in Big Sur. So we know that's an incredible resource that can feed them for months at a time. But we also know the existential threat that lead poses to condors and how that is the limiting factor right now in condor recovery and what's limiting them from a self-sustaining population. So it was also important to engage with the hunting community. So we conduct shooting demonstrations, we provide non-lead ammunition where folks can come out and test their rifles with that non-lead ammunition and kind of dispel some of those myths that surround copper and other alternatives. We conduct hunter education courses where we teach not only the rules and regulations that would allow folks to acquire their hunting license, but also concepts associated with stewardship of the land. And we participate in non-lead expos and demonstrations. The messaging for all these things is not only the dangers of lead toxicosis to wildlife, which we really care about, but also the dangers to people. You know, for the same reasons that we've removed lead from our paints and our pipes and our gasolines because of the threats they pose to us, it seems to us that it would make sense to remove them from ammunition and the food that we're potentially eating. Now, a big part of the reintroduction has and will continue to be reintegration of people with the bird, because ultimately this is one of our missions, is to bring it back to a place where it's really significant to local cultures. And this is Yurok tribal elder meeting with Mike Clark, lead zookeeper at the LA Zoo, to talk about condor recovery over the past several decades. So all partners recognize that a reintroduced condor population would be benefit to the condor recovery program. It would provide a buffer, you can see here on the map on the right, it would provide a buffer from any localized threats that might exist at any of the other sites. And it would provide a gateway for the bird to the Pacific Northwest, where resources are really abundant. Ultimately, the goal is a self-sustaining condor population with benefits to the condor reintroduction program at large, but also benefits to indigenous and Western cultures of the Pacific Northwest. So just briefly acknowledging some of our many collaborators over the past decade and hopefully future collaborators as we move forward. And I would thank you for your time and interest, and I'm willing to take any questions you might have.
Diamond was one of your collaborators, and I was thinking about this. So one of these babies decides to make a nest in the middle of their commercial forest. What happens next if they want to go cut some trees?
That's a great question, and that's something that just couldn't be talked about. But the fact is that the proposed project, and it's proposed, it's not finalized under NEPA yet, so we're working towards that. It's still working its way through the regulatory process. But it's what we're planning for is what's called a 10J population. And that's non-essential experimental, in which case you can tailor the regulations that surround the bird to be more flexible for local interests. So green diamond is of course one of those local interests, and the way it's written in right now into the regulations is that there would be a 200-meter buffer between any condor activity, so it's a roost, it's a nest site, so there could be no management activities within that 200 meters. And that's something that was agreed upon by multiple entities, green diamond included. Yeah, it's a great question.
What is the timeline that you're goaling for a release?
Yeah, so short term, no, I say this with some trepidation. It's been a long process. You know, these have been decades of studies, and you know, I arrived in earlier this year from another project, and I marvel at the work that they've done before I got here. But the truth is that those folks thought the reintroduction might happen 5 years ago, and it hasn't happened yet. The process is long, especially for condors. So fingers crossed in the next year or two. And that's kind of the, that's the loose estimate. But the plan calls for a release of about 6 birds every year for 20 years. That's kind of the broader goal to reach that self-sustaining population.
With the recent whale wash up on our shores, one of them was buried to decompose undersands. Would that be something you were working with to leave it above ground so that it would be a resource for the birds?
Whales are great resources, and I was disappointed to see that, but the fact is it's a really public area, so I understood that decision. It seems like the second whale is not going to be buried, so that's one of potentially several that might be on the shore right now between Mendocino, Humboldt, and Southern Oregon. So hopefully there's enough resources out there where if they need to bury it in a public place, we'll understand that. But yeah, we will engage with Fish and Wildlife and the folks at the Marine Mammal Center and see how a balance that can be struck between that.
Will there be a captive breeding program here, or will the new birds come from Southern California?
The new birds will come from the existing captive breeding programs, which exist at the Bird of Prey Center in Boise, Idaho, with Peregrine Fund, Portland Zoo, LA Zoo, San Diego Zoo. So those are all intact, and we'll be providing the birds, and then they get released from there to the different sites.
Tell them about our weather.
Yes, don't need jackets.
We'll have a long acclimation period.
Do we know anything about the white on the leading edges of the wings? Did they evolve that for heat regulation and thermals or anything like that?
Yeah, so that's that window, as it's called, is common in a lot of birds. Actually, a lot of animals in general. If you notice, the underside of fish is a different color. So yeah, it's an evolutionary strategy to help them blend in one way or the other, or meet certain biological needs. Yeah.
Last questions.
Thank you all so much. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. That's great.
So a couple last things. I don't know if you saw the Taste of the Holidays slideshow at the beginning of the meeting, but a huge thank you to Karen for putting that together for me. Just to highlight the success over the years and to celebrate the fun that we're going to have in a couple weeks. So thank you very much, Karen. A reminder, still looking for recognitions, so arcs.recognitions@gmail.com. Send your photos. I love to see what's going on. If you haven't seen me for a while, it's a great way to share what's happening. And do we have backpacks for kids?
Backpack for kids. So first of all, I want to thank Mike again for picking up the food yesterday. And John sent out the Sign Up Genius, and it's full. And we've got people signed up for delivery and packing, and this is.
And I want to thank Cam, who's not here, because he sent a text message last night saying, I can't deliver tomorrow because I'm going out of town, but it's taken care of. So, yeah, thanks, Craig, for stepping up.
When we're setting up on the day of Taste of the Holidays, that's Thursday, and normally we still pick up bags. So we're probably going to be bringing the food to the community center, packing it there, and then it'll either get delivered that afternoon before school starts, or somebody will deliver it the next morning. So just to let you know that we'll be packing that day.
Thank you, Lisa.
All right. We've got 466. Oh, that would be our
466.
All right. And the next one is 497.
No, man.
Okay, you both made it easy for me. All right, there we go. Yeah, you want to pick. All right. We get, another 5. All right, okay, here you get it.
I have a quick just invitation Education, I am working on a show, I'm stage managing a show called Rabbit Hole. It's at Redwood Curtain. It opened last weekend. We have 3 more weekends, this weekend, next weekend, and the following. Performances are Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and 2 Sunday matinees. So come on out, it's a beautiful show. It'll make you cry, but it's really beautiful and beautifully acted, so yeah.
Thanks, Jessica. Any other announcements? All right, thanks everybody. Have a good weekend.